They're getting ready in the Champions Club on this Sunday afternoon. A big crowd is here, and it's game number 3 between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays looking for a sweep. The reason why, the long ball. It began on Friday night. Jose Bautista, 54 a year ago, already 23 this season. That proved to be the game winner. They would win it 5-4. Then in game 2, third inning, only one hit, but 5 runs. And that one hit, Juan Rivera, his 6th of the season, a 3-run shot, and now the Blue Jays look for a sweep. And along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Welcome to Cardinals Baseball, and this long homestand coming to a close here this afternoon, Rick, and it's mixed results.
Yeah, it's really not been what the Cardinals had hoped for. Just 3-5 on this homestand. And, of course, the biggest news, Albert Pujols, the fractured left wrist against Kansas City. Some good things, Skip Schumacher swinging the bat well. Chris Carpenter picks up his first win at home, and Matt Holliday is swinging very well in the middle of that lineup. But the Cardinals need to win this game to avoid a sweep and get back on track.
No better place to be on a Sunday afternoon than at the ballpark. It's been that kind of way the last 2 home games on a Sunday. We'll relive those when we come back. Have provided heroics. First by Albert Pujols against the Chicago Cubs in a walk-off winner. And it was just a week ago, Skip Schumacher stepped in against the Royals.
Another great Sunday moment. Skip Schumacher hits his first homer ever against a left-hander, and it thrills the crowd here at Busch. First it's Pujols, then Schumacher. Who could be the hero on this Sunday?
It's Kyle McClellan. He'll take the mound for St. Louis. Baseball is coming up. avoid a sweep. You can join the Redbirds as they take on their division rival, the Chicago Cubs, in Chicago, August 19th through the 21st. It's the road trip package that includes luxury accommodations at the Four Seasons, hard to get game tickets, and a chance to mingle with the players after the game. Reserve your spot today, 800-892-7687, or visit cardinals.com/vacations. The starter today, a very good lefty for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, the ERA is under 3 for Ricky Romero. He's one of 3 pitchers in baseball, Dan, with an ERA under 3 and a losing record. He has outstanding stuff. 8 times in a row, he's gone 7+ innings. In his last outing against Atlanta, here's a mistake. Tim Hudson, he's a pitcher. He took him deep. Otherwise, he had an outstanding performance. And again, the strikeouts come for Ricky Romero.
And Kyle McClellan going for St. Louis, the right-hander against the lefty, Ricky Romero. The Cardinals and Blue Jays in Game 3. And it'll be Jim and Rick with some questions coming up next. In the broadcast. Yesterday, fans submitted questions at the Fox Sports Midwest Facebook page. Now, Jim Hayes and Rick Horton will answer your questions. Jim, you're up, down in the dugout. How can the Cardinals improve the bullpen after the All-Star break?
Well, they can make a trade. John Mozeliak told me that on the Cardinals' priority list, securing the bullpen, shoring it up, #1 on the list. The problem is a lot of teams need bullpen help. Meantime, Tony La Russa told me he's still bullish on Fernando Salas, thinks he's done a good job. He says he's not Mariano Rivera, so if there's a chance to go out and get an elite-type closer, he would be on board with that.
This question from Brian Burns. How is the Cardinal organization, Ricky, so resilient?
Well, I think it starts with the manager. Tony La Russa is resilient par excellence. That's really his mode, and I think he's made his players that way. They've come back after a lot of setbacks this year, and they're in one right now. They're in a bit of a rut, and we'll just see how resilient they are over the next couple of weeks.
Jim, 2 questions here. Once David Freese gets back, where do you see Daniel Descalso playing and how much? Also, how much will David Freese play?
Well, David Freese expected to come back from his rehab assignment on Tuesday when the Cardinals are in Baltimore. John Mozeliak said once he's returned, once he's active, he should be ready to go for everyday use. So Tony La Russa says a lot will be up to David Freese. If he's not sore, if he's not dealing with some sort of fatigue, then he'll play. As for Daniel Descalso, Tony La Russa says Daniel will go back to the utility role. He's opened a lot of eyes with his grit, his ability to come up with a key base hit, and also his throwing arm. That thing is a cannon.
This is from Shane for Rick. Did Skip focus attention on his defensive footwork during his stint on the DL?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're not talking enough about the defense of Skip Schumacher. He's been outstanding, hasn't made an error yet, not just when he was on a DL, but also during the offseason. He did a lot of athletic-related training for this year, and I think his defense has certainly improved.
All right, Jim and Rick, good job. Thank you. To get involved during the next homestand, go to Facebook.com/Fox Sports Midwest and click the like button. Baseball is coming up next. Baseball is brought to you by Bud Light. It's the sure sign of a good time. Here we go. By Chevy. See your Mid-America Chevy dealers. By Southwest Airlines, new Rapid Rewards. Unlimited reward seats and no blackout dates. By Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. #1 in quality tires and expert auto service. And by Steak and Shake. Light needs flavor. That's a look at the Shop and Save and Powerade duffel bag for the kids. 15 and under today. And it looks like the rain hopefully will stay away this afternoon after some vicious storms came through St. Louis last night. A look at the Blue Jays lineup presented by Southwest Airlines. Escobar, Hill, Bautista, Lind, Rivera, Encarnacion, Patterson, Arancibia, and Romero. And the pitcher today for the Cardinals, St. Louis, and Kyle McClellan, trying to snap the losing skid at 2 for St. Louis. And the first pitch is taken for a strike. Yunel Escobar, the former Atlanta Brave, 1 for 9 in this series. It's 78 degrees, our game time temperature. That's taken just a little bit low. And a fly ball hit into left center field. This could be trouble. And it is. It gets down. Rasmus couldn't get to it. Escobar trots in with a stand-up double. A look at the Cardinals defense behind Kyle McClellan here today is brought to you by Dobbs, Holiday, Rasmus, and Brown in the outfield. Descalso, Terrio, Schumacher, and Berkman along the infield. The battery this afternoon, McClellan and Tony Cruz. And a look at our scout report now on Kyle McClellan.
McClellan looking for his 7th victory. He's rebounded very well from his hip problem. He needs to keep the ball down. He's given up some home runs this year. Curveball is always a key pitch for him.
Here is Hill, the second baseman, hitting .248, showing bunt. And pushes it foul. Bunting here in the first inning. You don't see a lot of American League teams because of the DH sacrifice, and you don't see them
at all double switch. That's something that they tried to do last night and nearly messed that all up.
Even though Toronto has won the first 2 games of this series, they have had trouble scoring runs. We talked about it, so they're in that manufacturing mode.
Theriot long throw and safe at first as Berkman was off the bag. It's a base hit for Hill. Ryan Theriot was playing close to second base, so had to go a long way deep in the hole. And it's our Plaza Tire Foxmo replay here, in the effort by Theriot, very close at first.
Berkman just can't keep his foot on the bag, and of course the Albert Pujols situation comes to mind on a throw that's up the line for a first baseman. But as a left-hander, Lance Berkman not as likely to get injured on that type play.
Here is Jose Bautista. Bautista, 328 the average, 23 home runs. He's driven in 48 this year. Mentioned that in one season he was with 5 different teams at one point in his career, but now he has found a home with the Toronto Blue Jays. 54 jacks a year ago. Fooled by that pitch, pops it up to the right side and out of play. Just an amazing story. We've talked about it the last couple of nights. Jose Bautista, a year ago, 54 home runs. This season already with 23. As you mentioned, Rick, it began basically in the final month prior to last season.
Yeah, he found his home run stroke. Cito Gaston, at the time was his hitting coach, told him he needed to go play winter ball to keep that stroke. And really, it's just been smooth sailing since then for him. And he's turned into not just a good player, but a great player. And in some ways, Dan, I would still say he's a bit of an unknown player among general baseball fans. Certainly there's the avid fans will know who Bautista is, but the casual fans, you mentioned A-Rod and Pujols, and
you're also, well, you're playing in Toronto too.
Exactly.
You know, not a lot of the highlights are showing Bautista. And the other thing that we haven't talked about, we've talked so much about his offense, but what about the versatility that he gives Toronto to play either corner outfield spot, also play third base, and could be an everyday third baseman?
Yeah, the way teams have gone to 13 pitchers, most teams have, the more versatile you are, the more valuable you are. As a outfielder, infielder, the Cardinals have a number of players just like that, that almost just enhances your roster.
The 2-2 waved at by Bautista. He strikes out. There's a couple of swings in that at bat, Rick, where he was fooled by this pitch.
Yeah, curveball is key to McClellan, and that's more of a cutter there as he starts it on the outside half, and really not a very disciplined swing for Bautista. You often get these RBI guys, Dan, into spots like that. They don't want to walk. I mean, they want drive-in runs. They know their team's counting on them, and there are times where you can get them to expand their zone a bit.
Isn't that, though, as you look at the numbers for Lind, where you really see the great players from the very good players, the guys that have that discipline at that spot to take pitches?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And if you're swinging at balls 4 or 5 inches off the plate, the pitcher's pitch, essentially, you're going to get out more often than not. And again, that makes you a little bit less than great in those situations.
Here's a 1-0 pitch. Lind pulls it foul. 1 ball, 1 strike as that flew into the Cardinal dugout. Many of the Cardinals are looking back in the dugout, and you wonder if somebody was hit by that. A 1-1 pitch by McClellan. This is up and in. Cardinals really getting a 2-for-1 here with Tony Cruz behind the plate. So Molina gets the day off this afternoon and also tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. No ball game for St. Louis. It's off to Baltimore and then Tampa Bay. 2-2. Oddity last night, Jaime Garcia pulled out 5 runs, but only 1 earned run in 7 innings. 4-0 and 6 home starts this season. Home ERA the last 2 years is 1.42 for Jaime Garcia here at this ballpark. Big strikeout there for Kyle McClellan. I see it's odd because Rick, he's allowed 19 unearned runs at Busch Stadium, 5 more than any other major league pitcher at his home park over the last 2 seasons. Talking about Garcia.
And when you allow unearned runs, the oddity in that is you'd say, well, okay, those aren't his fault, but you don't want that number to be high either, because that means he's not able to get out of the inning and pick up a mistake that his defense makes, and that's exactly what happened in his start here with Toronto. Descalso made a throwing error, and then Garcia made it worse by the home run. Yeah, it wasn't all his fault, but he did walk the first 2 batters in that inning too.
2 outs, 2 on, and the third baseman today for the Redbirds, Daniel Descalso, can just step on the bag. McClellan gets out of an early jam. Kyle McClellan got a pair of strikeouts and a ground out to end that half of the inning. Our Southwest Airlines starting lineup for St. Louis: Terrio, Schumacher, and Holiday. Then Berkman, Brown, Rasmus, Cruz, Descalso, and McClellan. The Cardinals will face a very good lefty here today. Ricky Romero. Record doesn't indicate it at 6-7, but the ERA is under 3 pitching in the American League, and that's very good. 2.98. First pitch to Terrio, a strike. Cardinals shortstop is hitting .297, 1 home run and 26 RBIs. Pair of hits in this series, 2 for 8. Outfield is shallow. They shade him to the opposite field. Popped up into shallow right. Bautista under it, makes the catch. Let's meet the defense for the Blue Jays. They played very well in this series. Rivera, Patterson, and Bautista in the outfield. Encarnacion, the former Red, then Escobar, Hill, and Lind on the infield. The battery, Romero and Arancibia. Presented by Dobbs, and a look at the scouting report for the lefty.
Romero is a 4-pitch pitcher. He goes deep into games. He averages only 14 pitches an inning. He has a very effective changeup. Actually takes his finger off the ball and it almost tumbles forward. Sometimes it goes left, sometimes it goes right, and he doesn't always know which way it's going to go, but he's not afraid to use it to get outs.
If John Farrell's club would win today, they would be at 500. They're at 38-39. Mike Shannon, nice visit with John Farrell, and manager of the Blue Jays before the game, saying that his team, one thing he loves about it, they never quit. They play hard. And I've seen many teams in the American League East, after about 2 months, they say enough's enough, uncle.
Well, if you don't play hard in that division, it's an awful long season. The Yankees, 13 games over 500. Boston's always good. Tampa Bay finds ways to win as well. And the Baltimore Orioles a little bit better this year than they've been the last couple of the years. The Cardinals again going on to Baltimore from here, and might not be pushovers.
In the dirt, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Schumacher moves up in the lineup this afternoon, swinging one of the better bats. Just 2 hits, though, in this series. 1-2 rolled over, foul to Dave McKay. Toronto in town, a Canadian Baseball Hall of Famer, Dave McKay, first base coach of the Cardinals. And Schumacher waves at the pitch and strikes out. Going back to Dave McKay, as you'll see this last pitch that Schumacher waves at, even with nobody on, you'll see him with the stopwatch. Rick, what is he trying to get down, even with a pitcher that's not even working out of the stretch?
Well, you know, that actually doesn't make any sense to me, why you'd have the stopwatch with the pitcher warming up. I'm going to have to ask him that question. I have no idea. I mean, the stopwatch to me is more how fast is the pitcher to the plate, and I think the windup is a totally different thing. Now, if the pitcher happens to be like most relievers, most relievers work out of the stretch even without runners on base. You want to get an idea of what their normal delivery is to the plate. But I wonder if Dave's just having fun with the stopwatch.
Could be that. Could be also having the stopwatch ready for when the ball is put in play and timing a hitter down the line as Holiday grounds out and the Cardinals go in order. No score after 1. Initiative. We're proud to wear pins during our season this year on Fox Sports Midwest. For more information, please visit standuptocancer.org/Fox Sports. Big Cardinal fan recently passed away. Longtime ticket holder, Alice Ireland, and Terry Graves and Usher passed that along to us, and we wish the Ireland family nothing but the best, and we will miss Alice here at the ballpark. Edwin Encarnacion homered last night. Ground ball to Descalso. 1 away. McClellan gave up the double, the single, got out of that first inning jam, and now is settled in.
Not just the double, but the infield hit to Aaron Hill, and you thought you started to get that feeling that things were snowballing in the wrong direction, and that's really what pitching's all about. Turning the tide, turning the momentum of what could be a bad inning and throwing up a 0 somehow, and that's what he did. He struck out Batista and Lynn back to back, then ground ball, nice play by Descalso, and he's out of it.
Here's Corey Patterson, the 3rd overall pick by the Cubs back in 1998. And Rick brought up an interesting point to me during our timeout for the commercial break as you get a look at the numbers for Patterson. It was A-Rod and the Yankees involved in controversy with these Toronto Blue Jays a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, it was really kind of a big story in the game where A-Rod was actually rounding second base and John McDonald's one of their middle infielders. We haven't seen him yet in this series, but he was going to catch a ball, and A-Rod said, I got it. So he pulled away from it, and as A-Rod was running the bases, and then the Blue Jays were not too happy about that. And really what A-Rod did is against the rules, but he wasn't really called on it. They didn't make that call, and the Blue Jays were not happy with Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, explain that. It's an offensive player cannot make the defensive call.
Yeah, you're basically, you cannot deceive the defensive team by making an offensive or making a defensive call, and don't know exactly where that is in the rule book, but at the time we looked it up, and really beyond that, it's just not the right thing to do. I mean, it's kind of like
brutal.
It's what you do when you're playing in the backyard with your buddies, maybe, but not in the big ones.
I think it's things like that that have obviously hurt the reputation of a guy like Alex Rodriguez, who was for a long time the poster child of everything good in baseball, and then that has turned for the worse. Would you agree?
He's behaved himself into some of that,
no doubt.
But you also have, you know, I can tell you that pedestal that we put these superstars on is an awful tough thing to live up to, and yeah, that's an obligation. But, you know, to handle superstardom is a very, very difficult thing for a young man to do. And you'd hope that they could get through it and represent their team, their self, their family well. But, I mean, there's just a lot of pressures to start to think that you're a big deal when you really aren't.
Here's J.P. Arancibia, the catcher today for the Blue Jays. 1 ball and 2 strikes with 2 outs and nobody on. Did not go. Rick, that last pitch we've seen early on here from McClellan, that has been very, very sharp at fooling these hitters.
It's sharp and it's down. You know, the home runs that McClellan has given up, a lot of them have been on breaking pitches, either the cutter or the curveball that's up in the zone. Needs to make sure he finishes it, and he didn't finish that one.
That's a home run. Arancibia with a long home run out to left. That pitch was up. And the others that you were talking about had been down in the zone. It's a 2-out home run, a solo shot, his 11th of the year.
Wasn't trying to lead to that on cue, but that's exactly what we were talking about. The difference between a curveball at the knees or lower and a curveball that a batter can catch about belt high, and that's about what he does. And the delivery of Kyle McClellan, throwing an off-speed pitch, you have to release it out front, and really the release point difference might be 1/8 of an inch. Release point being where does the ball come out of his hand, where is your arm. The difference between being a belt high curveball and one in the dirt, I mean, I would say it's probably less than 1/8 of an inch.
Ricky Romero with a fly ball into shallow right. Arancibia adding to the Toronto home runs this weekend here at Busch. The relievers' ERA, big difference when you look at Toronto and St. Louis.
Yeah, the starters really not that significant. Half a run difference, you can overcome that, but that is a drastic difference between the state of the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen and the Cardinals bullpen right now, and that of course can change on a dime as well. We've seen that 10 days ago. I think the Cardinals were fairly happy about their bullpen, but things have certainly gone south since then.
But what Tony La Russa has done here after Monday's off day, Molina will have not started 3 of the previous 5 days. A little bit surprising not to see him in that lineup. There's a ground ball by Berkman, hit to short. Yunel Escobar makes the play. Berkman's former team, Ricky, the Astros, if they lose today, they'll go to 23 games under 500 for the first time since June 26th of 2000.
That's frustrating if you're an Astro fan right now. Worst record in baseball.
They've been out-homered at home 54-19. Here's Andrew Brown. You saw that shot of Molina, whose average has dipped just a bit. He's hitting roughly around 255 in the month of June.
Talking about Molina, I half expected Chris Carpenter to throw to Tony Cruz in the Wednesday game. Be Loesch, Carpenter, and Westbrook against the Orioles Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Carpenter with a good outing with Tony Cruz behind the plate. I actually thought we'd see Molina today and maybe have him rest that game.
Which would make sense.
Which would make some sense, but it also makes sense to get the back-to-back off days for Yachty.
1 ball and 2 strikes. One out and nobody on. And Brown shoots it out to right. Bautista going back and makes the catch on the run. A fine play by Jose Bautista in right field.
Well hit by Andrew Brown the other way. Now, we really haven't seen a lot of Andrew Brown. There's a nice over-the-shoulder grab.
Hyundai Foxmo.
What we have seen from Andrew Brown is he has some pretty good at-bats. He has a strong arm. And it's just still a little bit surprising. You think about him batting in the 5th spot. You wouldn't have thought that possible 30 days ago.
Rasmus lines it foul. And Colby is homered on this homestand, that long home run to right field a few nights ago. That was his 6th of the year. He's 2 for 7 in this series. Driven in 29 and batting .258 overall.
To elaborate on that more, Dan, the 5th spot in the order is a key RBI spot. If you're Tony La Russa making out a lineup and you know you've decided you need to rest Molina, he's not an option. Albert's hurt, he's not an option. You start looking through your players against a left-hander and say, well, Alan Craig's not here, David Freese is not here. Who do I put in that 5th spot? I don't think it makes sense to put a left-hander Rasmus there. So you're left with Andrew Brown, and it's just kind of amazing how it's gone from maybe having 4 or 5 choices for that spot to having a guy with very little big league experience in a key spot in your lineup.
You were wondering how this lineup would look without Albert Pujols, and
here it is.
Few times we've seen that over 10+ years. This is it. Freese should be able to bolster this lineup next week at some point. Nick Punto will return, so that'll give Tony the versatility that he enjoys off the bench. 1-2 pitch to Colby Rasmus. Off-speed pitch and struck him out. 2 on the afternoon for the lefty Romero. Baseball is brought to you by the Stadium Sports Bar and Grill at Lumiere Casino. It's now open, a sports bar for everyone. And by Taco Bell, right now offering $20 admission vouchers to Live Nation concerts. Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin, joined now in the booth by Jim Hayes. Some of the news here around the ballpark concerning the Cardinals. Yunel Escobar is the hitter. And the 1-0 pitch is taken for a strike. Escobar doubled to start the game. And Jim, we get a look here at Kyle McClellan, and some have talked about where he's positioned himself on the mound and mechanics wise, and you had a chance to visit with him about that.
Well, he said the mechanics and the adjustment to the change in mechanics is no longer an issue, and Dave Duncan said he agrees with Kyle on that. He moved from one side of the rubber, you guys have talked about it, to the other, also changed the position of his landing foot, and he said he used that time when he was dealing with his hip injury to just get the mechanics down, and now it's something that he doesn't even think about. And I know for other guys who have had their mechanics toyed with, bigger problem.
Fly ball into center field that Colby tracks down for the out. Escobar is 1 for 2. And Rick, when you think about the hip injury and how that affects a pitcher, that can be something that really lingers, but McClellan is saying he's okay.
Yeah, you know, pitching is kind of a violent motion. You might not think that because most guys are so smooth in how they deliver a pitch, but when you land, there's a lot of pressure on that hip, and you're really working against your body to get leverage. You have maybe a stiff front leg, and then you have to kind of turn over top of that hip violently to release the ball, and you do that about 110 times a day, and your hip's going to be sore. A lot of pitchers get sore backs in spring training. Very typical. Most pitchers go throw all off season, but once you get on a mound and throw, your back will be sore for about a week. It's just kind of a violent thing, and McClellan has been outstanding at coming back and being effective.
Terrio, the shortstop, puts it away.
How difficult for a pitcher who has been doing it, you know, this way for a long time to suddenly change. He's got it quick.
Well, fortunately, it's not a big mechanical change. It's just really a place on the mound, so it hasn't been, I don't think, that bad for him. So here's the deliveries, working off that first base side of the rubber. Really, the mechanics are similar, but there's the leg. You're stiff. You're throwing against that. You're trying to turn around your hip, and again, a lot of stress on that part of your body, and just amazing how he's been able to come back and be effective.
Part of it is where the foot lands and where it's pointed, and I would think any little tinkering with the delivery some a pitcher has to be conscious of, as opposed to, he says it's second nature now, he doesn't think about it, but you would think with some guys would have a tougher time getting past that.
What I would have been more concerned about McClellan than him getting used to it, because his mechanics are fairly simple in terms of what he's doing with his body. He's not going way over his head. He's not kind of a violent guy to the plate like, say, Mitchell Boggs is. You tinker with his mechanics, and who knows what's going to happen with that. But I was more concerned about the effectiveness of the pitches of Kyle McClellan. When you throw across your body and your foot is pointing towards third base, in this case with a right-hander, and you throw over that foot, you can create some movement that way, and you can hide the ball a little bit. So when you open up a little more, it's potential, you know, there's a potential for you to lose effectiveness and lose some of your, you know, maybe your ability to hide the baseball to the batter.
Batista out to left field. It's hooking, and that ball is foul. Jose Batista, and that was another hanging breaking ball, looked like that was up in the zone that time.
McClellan has allowed 11 home runs. Kyle Loesch 10, Chris Carpenter 10. They lead the team in that department, and you don't mind that so much if they're solo blasts. You mentioned, Dan, a lot of Batistas this year have been just that.
3-2 pitch, fought off, and a long way to go here in right field. Nice play made on the line by Andrew Brown.
The Cardinals will be hosting the Rockies that day. Stick around after the game to hear from the featured speaker, Adam Wainwright. For tickets and info, visit cardinals.com/Christian Day.
Tony Cruz, the hitter, takes ball one. Jim Hayes is with us. Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin. Day off for Molina that we talked about. So you have the off day tomorrow. Travel day for the Cardinals. They'll head to Baltimore tomorrow night. And then we'll be in Tampa Bay. 2 balls and no strikes. It's been 6 up and 6 down for this lefty, Ricky Romero.
You know, we started, Jim and Dan, analyzing the Cardinals lineup in our last half inning, and you start thinking about this team without Albert, without Freese, without Craig. You become very vulnerable to a left-handed starter like you were not maybe a month or two ago. All of a sudden, all your big bats that are dangerous from the right side aren't there, and you kind of can negate Rasmus and Schumacher and even John Jay, and you know, lefties could have their way with the Redbirds.
And Jim, one of the guys that really could help at this point would be a David Freese.
And the Cardinals expect to get Freese back from his rehab as this ball has popped up in Baltimore. They're hoping Tuesday, when the Cardinals open that set with the Orioles, and I asked John Mozeliak and Tony La Russa about how they plan to use him, and Mozeliak said if he's activated, he should be good to go for basically everyday use. But Tony says he'll keep a close eye. If there's soreness, if there's fatigue, then maybe he skips a day here or there.
And Rick, here's what you're talking about. Your third baseman batting from the left side here in Descalso.
Exactly. And you know, nothing against Daniel Descalso, but this is a tough matchup for him. And you also have John Jay, who's been, you'd have to say, an extremely effective part of the Cardinal offense. He's negated. He's not even in the lineup this afternoon. And I think Freese could be a huge difference to the Cardinals offense.
And Tony told me that Descalso goes back to being the utility guy. Tony has nothing but praise for the way Descalso has played third base, likes his grittiness, said the intensity is always there with the guy. And of course, as we know, he's had more than his share of big hits late in games.
2 outs, nobody on for Kyle McClellan. And you know, we haven't even touched upon, Jim, in your report here, the bullpen and trying to get healthy with a guy like Eduardo Sanchez.
Well, Sanchez is dealing with a shoulder problem, and they're hoping he can throw a bullpen this coming week and start the process of coming back. John Mozeliak said they're hoping that Sanchez will be throwing somewhere by the end of the first week in July. That could be a rehab depending on, you know, how he gets through this, but that would be a big plus for the bullpen.
And Rick, you're talking about, you know, right now probably your 8th inning guy would be Sanchez, and you're also looking at the calendar, Jim, talking about probably after the All-Star break.
You start pushing that into July, and that's a bigger deal with Sanchez than we thought it would be.
It's a fine play down at first base with Adam Lynn. Jim, great job as always, and we'll see you on the postgame. You can follow the Cardinals with MLB.com @BAT11 app for your iPhone, iPad, Android, or BlackBerry. Text @BAT to 31826 or visit Cardinals.com for details. Gorgeous day here in St. Louis, and glad that you're with us. Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin. Al will be seen on the postgame show with Pat Paris.
Dan, it is an outstanding afternoon considering the rain we had here last night and really throughout the middle of the night and some this morning. This has just turned into a beautiful, beautiful day.
78 degrees, our game time temperature, and Ontario makes the catch. So one away, and it brings in Juan Rivera. Rick, I was taking a look at the draft class of Romero, and he was selected 6th overall back in 2005. Think about some of the names that were part of this. Justin Upton was number 1. Alex Gordon 2. You had Jeff Clement of the Mariners, a catcher from USC. Then Ryan Zimmerman, Ryan Braun, Ricky Romero, Troy Tulowitzki.
Wow.
Talk about some talent.
You better believe it.
Jay Bruce was also selected in that first round. And if you're wondering, the Cardinals selected Colby Rasmus 28th.
Jacob Ellsbury, 23rd pick.
And Tyler Green was number 30. That's some pretty good talent out of that draft class. 0-2 on Juan Rivera.
And for a normal perspective, you know, it's kind of hard to think about a particular draft class in baseball because you don't normally look at it as a class as you just did, which I think is an interesting thing to do, but you're not going to get that many superstars out of a draft class usually. In fact, the entire draft, I believe the number is 4% of players that are drafted make it to the big leagues. I believe that's the number. And so only 4% of that whole long list even get to the big leagues, much less become superstars. Of course, you're talking about the first round picks. You expect a higher percentage there.
0-2 is hit into center field. And you talk to people that are around drafts, and that's how they make their living. On another pitch, by the way, that was up from Kyle McClellan. We'll take a look here with Rivera, but they'll tell you that a lot of times baseball is so much different than what you see in football and certainly in basketball and hockey, because once they're drafted, that's the position for the most part they play. And a lot of guys don't move around. Baseball, completely different.
Absolutely.
Here's Encarnacion.
Carlos Marmol was a catcher in the minor leagues.
Tony Cruz, your catcher here, was initially a third baseman.
Jason Mott was a catcher. Albert Pujols was an infielder, middle infielder.
Right. 1-0 pitch. 2 balls and no strikes. DJ Rayburn is calling our balls and strikes here this afternoon, the home plate umpire. Ted Barrett at first. Tim McClellan is the crew chief at second. Marvin Hudson down at third. Two balls and 1 strike. What does the DH do as far as the running game for most teams, in your opinion, for the American League?
Well, I guess it depends on the team, but I think a lot of teams will have a DH that's a power guy. I mean, it's a guy that maybe he's not a fielder, it's just kind of a guy that's just going to sit there and hit. So, I mean, I don't think the American League thinks as much about running because all they think about is hitting. They think about home runs more. Now, some of that's changed.
You know, the one guy that really is Socia with the Angels.
Very strong National League influence.
Absolutely.
And he'll also do a little bit more kind of classic lefty-righty stuff, too, with his bullpen, which you're used to in the National League. The American League, there was a time in the American League, it's like, okay, you got the 8th, you got the 9th, and, you know, hang with him. I mean, forget it. Forget the matchups.
There's a stolen base right there for Rivera on a pitch that was in the dirt. No chance for Cruz.
When you're talking about draft classes, Dan, you think about the Cardinals' last 5 choices. And we met one of them yesterday in Colton Long, who was on with us, and hopefully he'll get a chance to be an impact big leaguer. Last year was Zach Cox. I think he's still got a great future in front of him. Shelby Miller in 2009. Pete Cosmo was 2007. Brett Wallace 2008. You'd have to say those four have certainly made their mark, and maybe some stars in that group.
Here's a ground ball, backhanded by Descalso, looks back the runner, makes the play. It's worth repeating the story that Daniel told me, that all the way through Little League, high school, and college, he was a third baseman. And Rick, he looks comfortable down there.
Yeah, he's very smooth. You have to be good at reactions if you play third. You're going to have a step, and you're going to have to catch the ball. That's it. You don't have a chance to run to get it. Then the footwork takes over in terms of moving your body towards the base you're throwing to. But Descalso has been outstanding, and you talked earlier about him being relegated to part-time play once David Freese comes back. In some ways, that's a bit of a shame. I mean, it really is. You'd like to see him play more, but I think David Freese will give you a bigger upside with the bat.
So 2 outs. 1 ball, no strikes with a runner at second base. If you're just joining us on a gorgeous Sunday afternoon here in St. Louis, it's 1-0 Blue Jays. Man on deck, their catcher, Arancibia, solo home run in the second inning. That's all the scoring so far. And it's a walk to Corey Patterson. First walk issued by Kyle McClellan. Runners at first and second. With 2 outs.
McClellan's going to have to be careful with Arancibia. He took him deep in the second inning. 11 home runs in the 8th spot. Home runs have been a big part of this series for Toronto. Rivera and Encarnacion in game 2. Rivera's 3-run shot, the big blow, and then the home run late in game 1 by Batista. Won game 1 of this series. Very careful here with an American League pitcher on deck.
If you fall behind, would you just walk him?
I don't think I would do it intentionally, but I sure wouldn't throw him a pitch he could hit.
One ball, 1 strike. Make it now 1-2. Right down the middle. It was a 2-strike pitch last time up that he parked in the seats.
He was looking for an off-speed pitch there because he took a fastball right down central. That's usually an indication he was looking for something else. Call that being a guess hitter, playing deep for Arancibia.
Kyle is set, and here comes a 2-2 pitch. Foul back, good rip.
Game 1. Batista said he was guessing fastball from Fernando Salas, and he got one. It was actually out of the zone, but he guessed the right pitch, so he was able to get the right timing. I think Arancibia is sitting on off speed right here.
Got him. Ball, 3rd strike. And McClellan out of a jam. TORAT.com/Cardinals and send us your email the booth questions. Answer some of those later in the telecast. And here is Ryan Theriot to lead it off. A gorgeous afternoon here in St. Louis. Cardinals need some offense. They've yet to pick up a base hit. They've been out hit 4-0 and trailing by a run. First time through the lineup, no hits allowed by Romero. No walks, and he struck out 2. 4 ground ball outs.
And again, the pitch count low. 31 pitches through 3 innings. And that's what they've said about Romero. He's able to go deep in the game. We mentioned that in the open, that he's had 8 games in a row with 7+ innings. And it's because he throws strikes. Doesn't waste a lot of pitches. Actually used to be a guy that tried to strike out even more guys, but then found that the game got a little easier just by throwing quality strikes. First pitch, second pitch.
2-1 reach for by Theriot. Escobar makes the play. And Ryan Theriot is 0 for 2.
Pitches down in the strike zone, produce good results. That's a great sinker right there. Just the outside corner. Might even been a changeup. Again, we're talking about a changeup. He takes his pointer finger off the ball and his middle finger off the ball. So he's throwing it almost like a palm ball. Dave LaPointe used to throw his changeup that way, and it tumbles a little bit. Almost like a fork ball.
Strike 1 to Skip Schumacher. Last season, he held right-handed hitters, 286 average, lefties at around 240 or so. He's tough on both. His first season in the big leagues went 13-9. That was in 09. Then last year, 14-9. 32 starts. They say he's very durable. Two balls and 1 strike. Two and 2. Pitch count still under 40. Romero attended Cal State Fullerton. Little flare to right. There's your first base hit.
It's a jam shot here on our Foxmo. Gets that close to the handle, but enough strength for Schumacher to flare it over the second baseman. The Cardinals have their first hit here, Dan, and nice to get a hit in front of this guy.
Remember, there was issue with balls and strikes at the end of the game last night. Matt Holliday was ejected, and Holliday sends this into center. 2 outs.
And also an issue at first base.
It's up to Berkman in this inning. Happy birthday to Dorothy Dodge. She's watching in Waterloo, Illinois today, celebrating her 93rd birthday. She does not miss a game, so happy birthday, Dorothy Dodge. Big Cardinal fan.
Our issue at first base involved Lance Berkman coming back down on the bag. Our home plate umpire tonight is DJ Rayburn, and he was the man at first base last night that called the runner safe. Berkman didn't agree. Ends up with an error to Descalzo, and 5 runs later, a bad inning for the Cardinals.
2 outs, runner at first. Switch hitting Lance Berkman. Grounded out to short, first time up. Outfield is straight away. Skip Schumacher, the first base hit of the afternoon for St. Louis.
Only 2 Blue Jays have had more wins in their first 2 years as a Blue Jay than Ricky Romero. A guy named Roger Clemens and a guy named Jack Morris.
Pretty good. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Berkman. Just missed on the outside corner. Crowd has been quiet so far today, but not much to cheer about with only 1 base hit. Good rip there by Berkman. 2-2 the count.
That woke the crowd up. Yeah, it woke the crowd up. They're booing the man that dropped the baseball there.
EC crowd. Berkman strikes out, and Romero picks up his 3rd strikeout of the afternoon. That sends us to the 5th, a 1-0 game. Major League All-Star game, and you can see that on Fox at 7 Tuesday, July 12th in high definition. Cardinals trailing in this ball game by the score of 1-0. They've been out hit 4-1, and Romero, Rick Horton, has been outstanding.
He really has. Kyle McClellan's been pretty good himself. Take away that home run. Done a nice job of pitching. Got out of a jam in the 1st inning, and scattered his hits and the 1 walk pretty well. I think he looks sharp. 3 strikeouts. We haven't seen very many poor games from Kyle McClellan. He's not a guy that gives you just a horrible start where nothing works. I can't recall one.
1-1 pitch is tapped foul by Romero. Here's a 1-2 pitch, and a swing and a miss. Romero strikes out, and Kyle McClellan picks up the strikeout. And for Kyle, that is number 4 this afternoon.
Dan, his 1 poor start was against the San Francisco Giants, and that was the game where he hurt his hip. And we noticed early on something wasn't right with Kyle McClellan. He gave up 7 runs in that game. Then he was out for a couple of weeks, came back, and he's been decent since.
So 1 out, nobody on, and we're back to the top of the lineup. Yunel Escobar, the shortstop for the Blue Jays. And he looks at a ball with all the rain that we had last night throughout the St. Louis area. Sun is shining brightly today, but it is very muggy and humid here at Busch Stadium. 2 balls and no strikes. Dylan and Gavin Wolf are helping us out here in the booth today.
Hey, guys. We need all the help we can get, Dan.
Good luck charms, we think. We hope.
Well, if the Cardinals come back and win, have a big rally, these guys are headed to Baltimore.
Absolutely. Put them in the luggage. They're coming with us. Here's a 3-1 pitch to Yunel Escobar with the outfield shading him opposite field. Escobar today has doubled to start the game in left center and also flied out to Colby Rasmus in center. And he takes a ball. Get a look at the pitch count now for Cal McClellan.
Pretty good ratio, balls to strikes. 74 pitches, about average. Working here in the 5th inning, especially if he can get the next couple of outs in 5 or 6 pitches.
And
good
there's
start.
A fly ball into shallow right. Brown is under it, makes the catch. Runner back to first, and there's 2 down. Let's turn to our AT&T trivia question on this Sunday afternoon. Who's the Blue Jays all-time leader in batting average? Minimum 3,000 plate appearances. Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar. What a great player he was.
You know, the Blue Jays organization, you think about how difficult it is for them to really have some identity with some of the best players and even the best teams they've had, Dan, because they had a lot of players, a lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of great players that would play for them for a short period of time. We mentioned Roger Clemens.
Ooh, there's a fair ball. Descalso makes the play across the. It's 1-0. Toronto. Look at the Hall of Famers, Roberto Alomar, Ricky Henderson, and Paul Molitor. The Blue Jays had back-to-back World Championship teams.
Those are big names right there. Paul Molitor, one of the best hitters I ever saw play this game. He was just an outstanding hitter.
Andrew Brown with a high fly ball, left center field. And it's going to drop. Drops in, it's a double. Rivera was there. Patterson was there. And Brown now at second.
Cardinals almost had two infielders collide earlier on because they both wanted to catch it. Here's the opposite. I got it. You take it. Well, I'll pick it up. Miscommunication.
That's a center fielder's ball, isn't it?
No doubt. When in doubt, you know, we always like to blame somebody, right?
Why not?
And if you're going to blame somebody, you should always blame the center fielder because he's in charge. He's the quarterback of the outfield. Cardinals quarterback now at the plate.
So here is Colby Rasmus. Nobody out, showing bunt. It's a good one. Romero spins and throws. Rick, that's where you wonder sometimes if he would be best served, Colby, in that number 2 spot in the lineup, hitting in front of Pujols. If you have a right-handed leadoff man like Terrio, you split him up that way too.
We've seen him there before, and I'd like to have speed at the top of the lineup too. And he's a very good base runner, and that was a pretty good bunt right there. I think Rasmus is still, like a lot of young players, still trying to find out who he is as a player. Is he a home run hitter? Some days I think he thinks he is that. Maybe a gap hitter. You know, I think he's got a lot of tools, clearly, but I don't know that he's fully defined himself yet as a player.
Infield is drawn in with 1 out. Tony Cruz, the hitter. Ground ball slowly hit, and nowhere to go for Brown. Big out for Romero. Now the infield can play back with 2 outs, and you have Daniel Descalso, the pitcher, on deck.
A very frustrated Tony Cruz going back to the Cardinal dugout, and he knows that is just a bad at-bat right there. That's not plan A or plan B or plan C for that matter. You're just trying to drive the ball into the outfield somewhere, and he gets fooled. The little sinking action makes him hit the ball on the ground harmlessly to the left side.
Well, we've seen Rick Descalso come through so many times here in the first half of this season when they need him.
Sure have.
Now here's a situation. Roles reversed with the pitcher on deck. And now you've got Toronto out there with Romero. Does he go after Descalso, or does he pitch around him?
If I'm as nasty as Ricky Romero, I'm going after Descalso.
And today, Tony La Russa going back with the pitcher batting 9th, and Descalso in the 8th spot in the lineup. And certainly you won't see a pitcher hit next week.
We're going to have to keep those little tick marks and pass that along to Al. I know you guys had a little chart going.
Mental
chart.
Yes. Now that's scary to think either one of us could possibly chart anything.
No, I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
Much less think. Thank you, Rick.
Maybe I shouldn't finish your sentence.
You took it a step too far now.
I was just trying to help, Dan. Now.
They'll intentionally walk Descalso, and you've got Cal McClellan a chance to help his own cause. You have a car and love baseball, then don't miss discounted Cardinals tickets from Phillips 66 Gas when you fill up with 10 gallons or more. For complete details, stop by your local station or visit cardinals.com/Phillips66.
I think this often becomes one of those managerial moves. It was made simpler by getting behind an account to Descalso, but I think it's one of those moves where if you're a manager, if you're John Farrell, Tony La Russa, you do not want to lay awake at night saying, why did I not walk the infielder and pitch to the pitcher? Why didn't I do that? I mean, there's just a lot of frustrating downside if it backfires, so I think this is the safe way to go about it. Make Kyle McClellan beat you. Of course, that's what Tim Hudson did to Romero in his last start. The Braves pitcher, a 2-run home run, ruined Romero's day. Maybe Kyle McClellan has some pop in his bat.
1 ball, 1 strike on Kyle. Off-speed pitch, swung on and missed. Romero has struck out 4 so far here today.
Very shallow in the outfield, particularly in right.
And the 1-2 pitch. Got him. McClellan strikes out. We have played 5 here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. And the Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Start for the Cardinals on Tuesday night. Remember, we'll come your way at 5:30 here on your exclusive home of Cardinals baseball, Fox Sports Midwest at 5:30. Kyle Loesch making the start on Tuesday night. Adam Lynn will be the hitter. Lynn with 15 home runs. He's driven in 48 and batting .312 on the year. But today he is 0 for 2. He has struck out and also popped out to short.
77 pitches for Kyle McClellan through 5 innings. You would think he would have the ability to go at least 2 more innings. Key important factor for the Cardinals rotation is being able to go 7+ innings, and I think Kyle McClellan showing all signs he can get there.
Here's a 2-0 pitch. That's ripped into center field for a leadoff base hit. Really the only time that, Rick, we've seen him get hit around is when pitches have been up today.
Yeah, exactly. That pitch was up. He did get away with a fastball up in the first at bat for Lind, and he tried to go up there again. This time he's looking for it. Just jumps on this pitch. Again, the release point just a little bit too soon. Makes the trajectory a little bit too high of the fastball.
And there is a strike to Juan Rivera. Rivera is 1 for 2 today. Single, stolen base back in the 4th. McClellan would love the double play. He'll get the out here. Fly ball into shallow right. And the catch is made. Six Flags Day at Busch Stadium is coming up July 10th. Cardinals play the Diamondbacks, the final game before the All-Star break. And all fans 48 inches and under receive a free ticket to Six Flags. For Cardinals tickets, visit Cardinals.com. Here's Encarnacion off the end of the bat, finds a hole into center field. Rasmus, no throw, no play at third. Runners at first and third. Slow enough when it went through the middle for the advancement of Lind into third base.
And interestingly enough, there's really no cutoff man for Colby Rasmus to hit there, because both the shortstop and the second baseman are trying to go for that ball, maybe keep it in the infield. So once they miss it and it gets into center field, who's Rasmus going to throw the ball to? He has to throw the ball into second base. No cutoff man to keep the runner Encarnacion from advancing.
This turns out, Rick, now here in the 6th inning, this could be a real key at bat in this ball game. Runs at a premium, obviously, against Romero the way he's throwing today.
Absolutely.
Tapped foul. With the way that Patterson runs, very tough to turn a double play. So if you're Tony La Russa, you have to ask yourself, what's my best defense at this point? Do I bring my infield in? Do I keep the middle infield back and try to get that double play? If I bring him in, does it lead to a big inning with a base hit? I mean, all those things come into play here.
And by having him back, I think that's the right choice here. You have him back and you hope he hits it hard at an infielder, although you can't really plan for that. It just happens. And we've seen Tony many times before start with the infielders back, and then they'll start rushing in at the last second, trying to confuse the hitter a bit.
Ball scoots away, but Encarnacion stays put at first. It's 1 ball, 1 strike. The Orioles in the top of the 6th with a 5-2 lead over the Cincinnati Reds. And Milwaukee in the top of the 6th, leading the Minnesota Twins 3-1.
Another thing happening here is you've got the shortstop Terrio giving a sign to Schumacher saying who's going to cover. He's either going to have an open mouth or a closed mouth. He's going to hide that from everybody so the hitter can't see.
Slowly hit. Berkman only play, go to the plate and throw is high. Throw it away. And the runners will advance to second and third. Been a rough couple of days for Lance, hasn't it?
It sure has. That was actually the right move, the wrong execution.
And really his only play, charging that slow chopper and momentum coming forward. And if the throw is right, probably would have had that runner at the plate.
He's very aggressive here. McClellan goes by in front of him. It looks like maybe he didn't have a very good grip on that ball. Good throw, and he's out.
So one out, runners at second and third. First base open, 8th place hitter here, the intentional walk. Aaron Sibia has already homered today. That home run got the Blue Jays on the board, 1-0. A solo shot back in the second.
And here's why you're doing this. You'd say, okay, instead of facing the 8th and 9th hitters, we're now going to face 9 and 1. But the key at bat is the one with only one out, because that's where it's much easier to score a runner. So by intentionally walking the 8th place hitter, you're making the key at bat with Ricky Romero.
It's fielder's choice, RBI E3 on the play.
American Leaguers don't get to hit very much. They also don't get a chance to bunt very much. So kind of a classic squeeze situation here.
Wheels are spinning right now on both sides.
Oh, they certainly are.
Bases loaded. Ricky Romero, one out. Romero base hit past the diving Berkman into right field. 2 runs come in to score. Brown's throw is cut off, and Ricky Romero delivers to make it 4-0.
Berkman was in. Took away some range for him. Diving attempt. This inning has just gotten away from Kyle McClellan.
We're starting to stretch now in the bullpen for the Cardinals, and here comes Dave Duncan, and a 4-run lead. And that's the first base hit for Ricky Romero in the major leagues. Looks like Mitchell Boggs is starting to throw in the Cardinal bullpen, or at least he's standing on the mound. Now he starts to throw. Fox Sports Midwest invites our young hockey fans to the St. Louis Blues Youth Hockey Camp starting July 25th at the Ice Zone at St. Louis Mills. Camp designed by the Blues is the ultimate mix of hard work and fun on and off the ice. Ages 5 to 12 can train with the pros. For more information, go to stlouisblues.com. So they pitch around the 8th place hitter with an intentional walk, and Romero makes him pay with his first ever major league hit that scores 2. Line drive base hit into right field. It's 5-0. A 4-run 6th inning right now.
I have to guess that McClellan would have just one more batter, depending upon what happens here.
Batista on deck. 8th man to come to the plate this inning for Toronto. And right now, Rick, it's shaping up to be a very disappointing overall homestand here for the Cardinals. Took 2 of 3 from Kansas City, dropped 2 of 3 against the Phillies after it looked like they had a very good chance to win game 1 of that series. and have dropped the first 2 here.
Close games in games 1 and 2.
And that's going to be it. Tony La Russa doesn't like what he sees, so in the middle of an at-bat, he will pull Kyle McClellan. We step aside. Boggs coming in when we come back. Baseball is brought to you by Jack in the Box, where you can get anything on the menu any time of day. And by Kia Motors. To learn more, visit kia.com. A promising start unravels for Kyle McClellan here in the 6th inning here at Busch Stadium. Gives up 8 base hits. Error by Berkman certainly has cost the Cardinals in this inning. But the offense right now has not come alive either, with only 2 base hits, so the Redbirds turn it over to Mitchell Boggs.
Yeah, Mitchell Boggs had a nice outing his last time out in a very similar situation where the Cardinals needed some strikeouts. We'll see if he can duplicate that. Back, and all of a sudden an important part of the Cardinal bullpen, and really just a shame for Kyle McClellan. As you said, it was a promising start to this start for McClellan, and because the team's not scoring any runs, you start to do things that you might not otherwise do. Intentional walks, you might try cut off runs, and all of a sudden it opens up holes and it turns into a big inning, forces the defense to make a great play, and maybe Berkman tried to do a little bit too much too quickly, and next thing you know, there's a 4 spot on the board.
Remember, it was a 1-0 count, so now 1 ball, 1 strike. What's your thoughts of pulling a pitcher in the middle of an at-bat like that? And Tony's done that now a couple of times this year.
Yeah, almost as if he wanted to just see if maybe Kyle could show him something in the way he approached Aaron Hill, and I think it must have, that first pitch just must have been a tipping point for him. I mean, I can't imagine that he's planning that, but once he got behind in the count, he thought, you know what, I'm convinced now after watching that pitch that he's the wrong guy for this situation.
You just don't see that very often.
No, you don't. You might see it injury-wise. You might see it because the pitcher's not ready yet. But Tony has all his little bag of tricks about giving the pitcher more time to get loose out in the bullpen, so I don't think that was the factor.
1-2 pitch, swung on and missed. Mitchell Boggs has come in now in this series. He's faced 3 hitters and struck out all 3.
It's also possible, Dan, that Tony could read something in the mannerisms and in the eyes of Kyle McClellan. You know, that's part of a manager's job, is to know his players well enough to know, am I putting them in a situation where they can succeed, or where they are maybe I've lost them, maybe they're in over their head in some cases, and you don't want them to set them up for failure. You want to set them up for success if at all possible.
Oof, look at that cut by Batista. Hey, you better stretch your back after something like that. Wow.
My back hurts from up here watching that.
Goodness. Two outs, 2 on, and the 0-1 pitch.
He's not a real big guy either, is he?
No, not at all. Good pitch on the inside corner. 0-2. Previous batter, Hill, he got him to chase. The slider with 2 strikes. This is a fastball at 94 that hits the inside corner.
6 feet, 197. And a lot of pop. Don't make a mistake.
And he may have gotten away with one.
Maybe a little bit too good 0-2. It was at least down in the zone. I'd like to see that fastball down and in from Mitchell Boggs. That little sinker. I say little sinker. That nasty sinker.
There's a slider there trying to get him to chase. 1 ball and 2 strikes. By the way, Rick, Pittsburgh, Bautista's former team, is only a game back of St. Louis. Cardinals start play 2 games behind Milwaukee for the lead in the Central. Mitchell Boggs, nice job. 2 strikeouts. Back to back with runners on. Sin tosses his 5th consecutive shutout, flanking the Pirates 3-0 in the first game of a doubleheader. Think about Bob Gibson and the year of the pitcher, 1.12 ERA.
Pretty close to Drysdale. You start doing the math there. 5 straight shutouts, 45 innings. Drysdale's was 55 or 56, and then Hershiser broke that record, but Gibson would think is 3rd.
Were you in Los Angeles by the time that Orel had done that?
I joined the Dodgers the day he started that streak, and I saw the entire thing, and it was unbelievable how good he was. In fact, the day he broke the record, Drysdale was there at the ballpark. I was the losing pitcher in the 10th inning.
Nice plays. Terrio is retired.
I appreciate you bringing it up, Dan, but it's 9 inning of shutout ball by Hershiser, which got him the record. And they were celebrating after the game, and I was over in the corner answering questions why I gave up a home run to Mark Parent, who couldn't hit home runs in San Diego. And I'm still a little testy about it, as
I
you
could
could
tell. I better switch subjects here. Here's Skip. Man, a few things you get upset about. That's one of them. What was it about Orel Hershiser and watching that streak that that made him, you know, at that time it was almost like he was unhittable.
He's a very analytical pitcher, very prepared, very intelligent, and he could repeat his motion on every pitch. He just had tremendous mechanics, and his ball had a lot of movement. Think about Jaime Garcia with the sink and then the slider and the cutter going to the left and to the right, and that's kind of how he was from the right side. And really, you know, Tommy Lasorda used to call him a bulldog, tenacious competitor.
2 away. And he's now working on Sunday Night Baseball, and very good. Email the booth, presented by Carsoup.com. Why are the pitcher and catcher called the battery?
And for the second time in the telecast, I'm going to say I have no idea.
It's from Germantown, Illinois. Maybe somebody can email us.
Yeah, we need an answer on that.
I always say it.
I say it too.
That's
and the battery is. Yeah. Makes no sense, but I say it.
A lot of things that we say don't make a lot of sense, but we've got 3 hours to fill.
I used to know why they call it a bullpen too, but I've forgotten that.
Now you're going to tell me why managers wear uniforms. I've stumped you again.
I've got a lot of Googling to do, obviously.
Mm-hmm. 2 outs, and the 1-0 is fouled back by Holiday. One ball, 1 strike on Matt Holiday. 1-2, and Romero is just dealing here on this Sunday afternoon. Very effective. Holiday so far today, grounded out to short and also flied out to center.
The use of the word battery in baseball was first coined by Henry Chadwick in the 1860s in reference to the firepower of a team's pitching staff and inspired by the artillery batteries then used in the American Civil War. Now you know.
And Holiday is hit by a pitch. Trots down to first base. Hit the shin guard.
1860s, Dan, no wonder we didn't know.
That's what I'm ready for Bill Murray. Groundhog Day when he's watching Jeopardy. Come up with every answer. The people are watching him in amazement.
What is the roan?
Exactly.
Oh, you hit on one of my favorite movies.
Here's a grounder. Ned Ryerson.
Forgot about
Ned.
Ned the head.
for the Cardinals as we move to the 7th inning. If there has been a positive this weekend, it's the guy on the mound as interleague play continues here in St. Louis, and that's Mitchell Boggs. He's seen 4 hitters with 4 strikeouts.
Yeah, wasn't sure we'd see him back out for the 7th inning. I think if we're not for the off day tomorrow, we wouldn't see Mitchell Boggs because he's become such a weapon. Like to see him back out there as soon as possible. But another inning here, and he would certainly be available for Tuesday night, the beginning of the road trip. And what's turned out to be, because of the Cardinals not playing well here at home, maybe an even more important road trip than we might have guessed. You don't have Albert. Team's kind of going in the rough direction. If the Cardinals aren't careful, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati might catch up.
Catch made by Holiday for the first out. Rick, you were talking about, where Boggs has become a weapon, but that gives you an idea of the ebbs and flows of a major league season. This is a guy that was demoted to AAA, and now you look at him, you say he's your strikeout guy coming out of the pen, at least one of them. And demoted and given the message that we want you to start now, which might make a pitcher think, okay, I guess I'm really bad at what I was doing, relieving. And now all of a sudden he's key and important part of the Cardinal bullpen, and really, to me, establishing himself as the best bet to be the 8th inning guy right now. And that change has taken place in 2 weeks. And Jim was telling us in the 3rd, Jim Hayes, that Sanchez, it may not be until that first week of July that we would see him back throwing a bit, but he's got to get himself a rehab assignment or 2, you would think. And then the All-Star break. Yep. This is Juan Rivera, singled in the 4th, and takes a pitch inside. 2 balls and 1 strike. It was just last inning, Matt Holliday was hit. I'm thinking the same thing. That was suspicious. And that is hit out to deep left field. Holliday is back. He won't get it. Plays it off the base of the wall. Throws it into second base wide, and Juan Rivera in with a stand-up double. Pitch down and in. Rivera showing some pop in his bat. A couple of hits today. Big home run off of Garcia last night. Rajay Davis is the pinch runner for Juan Rivera, and here is Encarnacion. Patterson reached on an error in what has turned out to be a key play in the ball game. If Berkman's throw is on line to the plate, you may get that runner. Could be 2 outs and you're out of the inning after that. Instead, wide throw, runners move up, run scores, and it wound up being a 4-run 6th inning for Toronto, and they lead it by the score of 5-0. When you're down by 5 runs and you only have 2 hits, it looks lethargic. Yeah, the Cardinals only have 16 hits in this series between the 3 games. You mentioned 2 of them this afternoon, and when you're not hitting, you do look lethargic. There's no two ways about that. The pitch misses in and down. 2 balls and 1 strike. You start to say things like, well, the team's not hustling, or they're not energetic, or they're not prepared. You start to make conclusions that really aren't true. Because in baseball, if you hit a ground out to short, you can run down there, but what else? I mean, that's it. It's hard to look like you've got a lot of life when you're not hitting the ball. Broken bat caught by Terrio. Two outs. This one almost looked like ready to hop out of the glove of Terrio. Did it hit his heel? A little snow cone here. Oh, okay. Actually, yeah. Webbing. His defense, as we talked about last 7 to 10 games, has been much better. Much better.
Had that 2-error game on that road trip. He was kind of joking that night. He actually got taken out of the game and was sitting in the clubhouse and listening to the home broadcast. And they were talking in Washington about how he'd made his 3rd error and he'd been out of the game by that time. It was actually Tyler Green's error, and he said, boy, I'm really having a bad day. I just made my 3rd error and I'm in the clubhouse. And he was joking about that the next day, and really since that day he's made a number of fine plays in short. I mean, he's not going to be Ozzie Smith, make no mistake about that. You just need him to be steady.
Intentional walk to Corey Patterson. And with first base open, they'll walk him. And you bring up a guy with 11 home runs and 1 earlier today.
Curveball, he went down to get it. There must be something about this matchup that Tony likes. Boggs on Arancibia. I'm not really seeing it. Would have liked to have seen him take his chances with Corey Patterson.
Runners go, and it's fouled back. It's Davis running from second base. Patterson at first. A good speed out there. You get a ball in the gap, and Patterson may score.
Best answer I can have for this. Now they're going to have a little conversation about Mitchell Boggs holding the runner. Tony Cruz, also Skip Schumacher, enters the conversation. The only thing I can think of here, Dan, is that Tony believes that Mitchell has a plus slider here this afternoon, and that pitch ought to be good enough to neutralize the right-handed batter at the plate, the catcher Arancibia. I'm reaching, but that's my best guess.
Yeah. Here's the 0-1 pitch. Will the move pay off here? Shallow center, should. Colby makes the catch. It's a 5-0 lead for Toronto, and it's time to stretch. Recap. A look at the starters lines. Romero 6 innings pitched. McClellan 5 1/3. And it was Arancibia that had the solo home run in the 2nd inning. And the difference in the game, really the 4-run 6th. Cardinals had chances to get out of that but could not. So that's where we stand right now. 5-0 lead for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, very close game until that 6th inning, and things just went in the wrong direction for Kyle McClellan. He had a decent start going, ended up with bad numbers. All those runs earned for McClellan, even though there was an error in that inning. Still trying to understand why that's true, but the fielder's choice and the error on the throw, I guess, led to those all being unearned runs. Romero on the other side has been outstanding.
Here's Andrew Brown. Pitch count is only at 72 following that pitch for the lefty, so no reason to think that he couldn't be extended deep into this game.
Davis stays in the game. He's playing center field. John McDonald takes over at third base.
Detroit Tigers retired Sparky Anderson's number today. Very close friend to Tony La Russa. Passed away, and his number 11 retired by Detroit. Romero, it's been that kind of day for the Cardinals.
I heard a great story about George Kissel, the longtime Cardinal coach, who also passed away not that long ago, and maybe the most venerated baseball guy that I've ever been around. I mean, just absolutely loved the teaching and the style of George Kissel. He actually talked Sparky Anderson into being a manager. He didn't want to do it.
Is that right?
And he said, you would be great at this. And Sparky had kind of a crisis of confidence about it. George once told me how he just went to him and said, look, you're going to do this and you'll be good at it.
And that was it.
And that was it.
Think about how many guys over the years that he helped.
Oh.
Apparently, Tony said that he was one of the most approachable guys within the close-knit group of coaches and managers that you could talk to about strategy and get advice from and that kind of stuff.
You know, George was just funny. He had these little sayings that he would just repeat over and over again, these little teachable sayings that would make a point. And he would use those, and any player that had been in an organization with him would know what they meant, and they stick with you for life.
Two outs.
We showed the Jimenez no-hitter for the Cardinals. And Tony's reaction after the no-hitter, we saw him go in the dugout. I'd never seen that footage. He went over and hugged George Kissel, who had actually been there at the game to see that outing for Jimenez. George very much missed, as is Dave Ricketts, my other great friend, longtime Cardinal coach.
Hamilton is on deck. Oh, 0-2 pitch. Could be 7 scoreless innings here by Romero. Go back to last year when he pitched against the Cardinals. But nothing like the start of Bud Norris against St. Louis in his Cardinal career. That sends us to the 8th, and it's 5-0 Toronto. baseball All-Star Game history are going head-to-head. And right now, still in that, Stan the Man and his walk-off homer. And you can vote at MLB.com. Vote for Stan, MLB.com.
We'll see if Jason Mott, our Mid-America Chevy Dealers call to the bullpen, can do something close to what Mitchell Boggs was able to do. Another nice performance for him, an inning and 2/3, 1 hit, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. He came on with a couple runners aboard in the 6th inning, and he's kept this a 5-run game. Mott will have the 8th. And they'll start with the pitcher, Romero. Romero had a big hit, Dan, in that 6th inning. Boy, that was kind of a backbreaker, wasn't it?
It really was, and they had pitched around the 8th place hitter to get to him, loaded up the bases. He had never had a base hit in his career. And you're right, looking back at all the hits today and the little things that have taken place, that was probably the one that gets you most upset if you're Tony La Russa.
No doubt.
1 ball, 1 strike on Ricky Romero. Now going back to last year and what he's done today, Romero 15 straight scoreless innings against the Cardinals.
Working towards Bud Norris territory.
24 for Bud Norris, I believe, was the number. Reds are getting healthier. They'll have Homer Bailey taken off the disabled list. He'll start later today, I believe. Mott stays with it and makes the play.
That had a chance to be an ugly play right there, but Jason Mott kind of stayed with it. Good thing he didn't panic. I mean, if he panicked, tried to pick that up, maybe had to reach for it a couple of times, that would have been, well, bad little highlight.
Joe Torre back in pinstripes today for the first time since '07, Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium.
One of my favorite experiences in my 7 years having the privilege of wearing a Major League uniform was being in New York for an Old Timers game.
Just a little bit different there, isn't it?
I was with the White Sox, and you know that they used to do the Old Timers games. I mean, they did them up big. And Mickey Mantle was there, and Joe DiMaggio was there. I mean, Whitey Ford was there. I mean, this is just every place you turned there was a iconic figure, and packed house, and just incredible. Bobby Richardson had a great chance to have a great connection with Bobby Richardson, who, like me, has been involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes for a long time, and we had a great connection. But just to see Mantle and Yogi Berra, I mean, just incredible how many great stars they have in their history.
Cardinals used to have the Old Timers Day. Maybe they should bring it back.
Sign me up.
I think a lot of the guys, and we talked about it, that live in this area, and even the ones that don't, would love to come back for a weekend.
You know, we do it in a sense with our Legends Camp down in Florida, where 20 former players will go and really play for 3 straight days. So that's a little bit more demanding than just 1 day of playing. But I used to love those Old Timers games.
I think people would love to see Ozzie Smith take some ground balls. He can still pick it.
I'll say.
He is in great shape. And watching him at Legends Camp again was, we've talked about it, but it was unbelievable. It was like he just, you know, stepped right off the bus, and here we go. Time to play some baseball.
We're very close to confirming that Willie McGee will be at our next Legends Camp. How much fun will that be?
Now, who had to recruit him? Ozzie?
Ozzie was our little conduit. Yes, he was. Good.
And Ozzie's coming back, too?
And Ozzie's coming back.
It's great. Crowd today of 36,542. 36,542. What did you, as an opposing player in those teams in the 80s, what did you guys think of Davey Johnson, who now has been named the manager of the Washington Nationals, and back then, for most of us, he was known as Pond Scum.
Yeah,
remember the Mets are Pond Scum.
Well, somehow I was able to separate. I kind of like Davey Johnson, just not any of his players. I mean, most of his players. Let's put it that way.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Davey Johnson did a great job of managing those Mets teams, and they were competitive every year. He kind of stayed above the fray, I think.
He really did.
You know, he wasn't really involved in a lot of controversial things. They had Dykstra and Backman. You know, they had enough.
Strawberry, Hernandez, Howard, Johnson. I mean, Tim Tuffle,
Gary Carter.
We wish him nothing but the best. He's going through a very tough time, obviously. Diagnosed with cancer. Loesch will get the start on Tuesday night.
We see Ron Darling every once in a while, still in the broadcasting world, and outstanding pitcher.
He wrote a book, too.
Roger McDowell in their bullpen. Big league pitching coach. Jesse Orozco.
Sid Fernandez. I mean, the list goes on and on. What do you think about Cardinal baseball? That was such a resurgent time in the game here in the 1980s. One-two pitch to Aaron Hill, taken for a ball.
And even though I am a classic traditionalist when it comes to baseball, I do not like the designated hitter. I don't like players showing up other players, or certain things as an older player you just don't like to see change. However, the Met Cardinal rivalry has been replaced by some other rivalries, and so the division thing, if the baseball decides to go to the two teams in the two divisions, 15 teams, maybe another rivalry will come around the corner. Bottom of the 8th inning, Ricky Romero has been dominating from the left side. Outstanding performance with the arm as well as with the bat in the 6th inning. He chased Kyle McClellan, our Nissan drive of the game, base hit to right field, his first big league hit, a couple of RBIs. It has been all Toronto and all Ricky Romero.
So efficient, too. Look at that pitch count, only at 81. Pete Cosmo will be the hitter. 5-0 as we move to the bottom half of the 8th. The Cardinals with a total of 3 hits today.
Get the sense Romero could throw 12, 13, 14 innings, a little bit like the start Cliff Lee had against the Cardinals. He just kind of nice and smooth. Seems easy.
Pete Kozma hit that one into the second deck. Not quite Mike Laga, but
That was a bomb.
it really was. Mike Laga, the only player known to hit one truly out of the old Busch Stadium.
Every time I think of Mike Laga, it just makes me laugh. I love Mike Laga as a teammate. He wasn't there very long. He did hit that foul home run out of Busch Stadium over the Cardinal dugout. He tells the story of making the Detroit Tiger team. We talked about Sparky Anderson earlier. Making the team out of spring training, was on the plane, and the equipment guy came up and said, hey, tapped him on the shoulder. He was in a card game in the back of the plane. Tapped him on the shoulder and said Sparky wants to see him.
no.
So he goes up to the front of the plane and they sent him to AAA. It was the first chance he was going to be a big leaguer. Leaving spring training, they had to get
how could that happen?
They had to get his luggage off the plane and delay the plane taking off because he was sent down on the plane.
Now, how could that happen? How do you break camp and not know these are my guys?
They got news about a guy who had been hurt. They thought they were going to disable, and they found out they didn't need to. They got the word, and Mike left. So we used to walk up to him in the clubhouse, just tap him on the shoulder and say, Sparky wants to see
Oh,
you.
man. How tough that would be to call mom and dad and say, I've made, well, first of all, I made it.
Right.
You know, they're probably planning to go to Detroit or wherever they're going to open up.
Sure.
Mom and dad, I have some other news.
And then you got to make that long walk up the plane.
That's brutal.
Oh, it's terrible.
1 ball, 1 strike on Ryan Theriot following a walk to Pete Kozma. Theriot pulls it foul. That's the kind of day that sticks with you forever.
Well, I wasn't even there, and it sticks with me.
Absolutely. I mean, how do you forget a story like that?
I tell you, he did have some power. Could not connect all the time, but very much a hustling player.
Into right, this could be a double play. Kozma was off with a pitch. It's been that kind of day, that kind of series against Toronto. Double play, 9-3. That helps out Romero.
And you're exactly right, Dan. It's been that kind of series. The little things just not going the Cardinals' way. The error by Berkman was a little thing. The ground ball past him in that same inning was a little thing. Line drive to the right fielder, hit and run situation. Could have been a much better result, and it wasn't. And it's not an excuse. It's just the reality of the ebbs and flows of baseball.
So 2 outs, nobody on for Skip Schumacher. One and one.
So next time you see Mike Laga at a baseball event somewhere, I want you to walk
I will
up
not
to him
do that.
and just tap him on the shoulder and say Sparky wants to see him.
I will never do that to him. No way.
Why not?
I'm not stupid to your level. I can't wait to do it to him. I got to be honest with you.
I know you will.
The catch made in center, and we head to the ninth.
To the ninth at Busch Stadium. Coming up after the game on the post-game edition of Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live, Pat Paris and Rick Horton will be at the Stadium Sports Bar and Grill at Lumiere Place, putting the homestand behind us. Things we learned courtesy of Ricky and another edition of Tony TV. The crowd hanging around on a beautiful day at Busch Stadium, and we go back to the booth. And Dan and Rick, guys.
Okay, good job today, Jim. As always, over 36,000 here. And we'll see a Cardinal debut, the new lefty, Raul Valdez.
Valdez, we saw him with the Mets. We saw him in that long game, the 20-inning game that Felipe Lopez pitched in. And he actually had a couple of key at-bats in that game and went to AAA to be a starter, although the Cardinals had originally envisioned him as a reliever. Then they put him back in the bullpen, and he's been pretty good of late. So an opportunity certainly for him. The Cardinals trying to figure out the right left-handed combination out in their bullpen. I don't think they figured it yet. He has a kind of a bit of a curveball, does not throw very hard.
So the Cardinals with 3 lefties in their pen right now.
Valdez, Dan, is a bit of a short armor. I would say that's even put mildly. Doesn't really have a lot of extension back, forward, just kind of just flings the ball without much follow through, really. Not a classic pitcher's motion.
Red Sox lead the Pirates 4-2 in the bottom of the 8th. So if it stays like this in both these games, Cardinals will still be a game in front of Pittsburgh. The Pirates, by the way, set a PNC Park attendance record on consecutive days this weekend. That truly is one of the great ballparks in the country.
Absolutely.
Here's a 3-2. Up the middle, base hit. Jose Bautista. We had Marine Week here in town, and it's wrapping up today. My understanding is, Rick, they're going to come back again next year because of the crowds that the Cardinals get for homestands. It mixes in perfectly for what they're trying to do and get awareness and show people what they do. So very well could see them again here next year.
Appreciated the explanation of what they're really trying to do that we had on our telecast, that it's not really about recruiting necessarily. It's about just letting people know, letting our people get in touch with everybody else, just so they can know more about what our life is like and kind of establish more of a connection and a communication, which I thought made a lot of sense.
I'll admit the Marine scared me. The one that was in here, I was quite frightened.
I'm with you. I shook his hand and I was just glad to get it back.
It kind of hurt. You went crumbling to your knees.
Yeah,
it's a great job, Colonel. Thank you.
Let's just say I
Leave me alone.
I called him Sir a lot.
Here's Davis with runners at first and second.
I don't believe that had anything to do with the Cardinals' Matt Holliday getting hit earlier, but I can't prove it.
the rules have changed even from when you played, you know, and how guys police the game. Would you agree?
No doubt. Well, not only have the rules changed, but it's always been true that there's information that you can't fully track unless you're down there on the field. The player's reaction. What do they say when they hit Matt Holliday? Did the pitcher say, I mean, he's not going to say I'm sorry, because that's, you know, there's no apologizing in baseball either. No crying or apologizing. You just act like you did it and move on. But you can act and say some things to extend the problem. And there's spring training games that you might not know about, and there's winter ball that you might not know about where things have happened.
Davis is swinging a miss for the first strikeout. And I think if you look back even a week ago, we saw Talent in the 8th inning with the Cardinals leading that game, hit one of the Royals. And one of the things I think that you think about is Davis was
a little tardy.
Yeah, a little tardy and a little frustrated. But one of the things you think about, Rick, is, as you mentioned, the carryover effect of the previous series in Kansas City.
That's right. Number of pitches up and in on the Cardinals when they played in Kansas City, and Ned Yost and Tony La Russa certainly have history even before that, which may come into play. My favorite throwing at somebody's story is when Ken Daly, my roommate for many years, was warming up in the bullpen in Puerto Rico, and Mel Hall was playing center field and yelled at him while he was warming up. He was throwing a bullpen. And he said, aren't you the guy? Aren't you Ken Daly? And the guy said, yes. And Ken had hit him like weeks prior. He charged him from center field while Ken was throwing a bullpen. And so there was a fight in the bullpen. I just think that's hilarious.
I mean, it just kind of, so many odd things that happen over 162 games with all these different teams and all the different emotions, the downtime and the oddities of the game of baseball, and why we love it.
I mean, really,
I love hearing that a guy charged him in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's just spectacular the way the game of baseball lends itself to fun things, great relationships, stories, oddities. You know, Red Schoendienst loves to say, I've never seen two baseball games that are the same.
And that's true.
And he's seen a lot of them.
Yep.
And he says, I see something every year that I've never seen before, which I think is another great statement. And also very true.
3-1 pitch. Hit out to left. Holiday with plenty of room under it. 2 outs.
It's the pastoral nature of the game. You can't imagine NBA guys stopping in between timeouts and telling each other stories. But on the baseball field, you see the first baseman talking to the runner at first. Between innings, they run by each other. Batting practice, they're talking to each other. You wouldn't do that in football. And no other sport really has this relational story factor to it as baseball.
And none better probably than out in the bullpen.
Oh, yes.
Those guys out there with the downtime that they have. Veterans that have been around a long time in many cases for bullpens.
I sat in a bullpen in St. Louis talking to Dan Quisenberry, the late Dan Quisenberry, another wonderful former Cardinal, of course, known more for his years with the Royals. It was the first day I met him. I got traded back to the Cardinals. Dan Quisenberry in the bullpen told me a 5-inning story about his days as a helicopter pilot during Vietnam. And at the end of the 5th inning, he said, oh, by the way, I was never in Vietnam. He told me a 5-inning story that he was just making up. And it had happened because a helicopter had come over the field. He said, well, I'm having a flashback. And so he goes and tells me the story that he absolutely makes up. And he's just reeling me in, telling me this story about his Vietnam experience that was totally fabricated.
For 5 innings.
I'm not kidding, for 5 innings. And everybody on the team knew what he was doing to me. And, I mean, how do you stop a guy when he's laying his heart out there, except for the fact that he was making it up?
What did you say?
I just laughed, basically.
Just get up and leave and say, that's my last conversation with you.
I'm glad it wasn't. I love Dan Quisenberry.
Valdez gets the strikeout, and that sends us to the bottom of the 9th. Cardinals trail by the score of 5-0. And Matt Holliday will lead it off. And the story is the pitching of Romero of the Toronto Blue Jays, and he has been magnificent here this afternoon.
Yeah, it really has been outstanding. Everything that we heard about him is true. He's a guy that can go deep into a game. Doesn't throw very many pitches per inning. That's why he's still out there in the ninth. Only 3 Cardinal hits. Been effective with all of his pitches. A lot of strike ones from Romero. Really not very many balls hit hard.
Holliday is hitting .332 on the year and grounds it foul.
Romero's made a great impact on this Toronto organization the last couple of years. Dan, you talked about him being a #1 pick and coming up here and making a splash, and this is what you hope out of Shelby Miller somewhere down the road for the Cardinals. You hope you've got a guy that's going to come up and just hit on all cylinders, become a 15 to 20 game winner in the big leagues for you, even at a young age. And of course, Shelby Miller was a high school pitcher, not a college pitcher, so it may take him a year or two longer in the development part, but he has done very, very well. Shelby has at the AA level.
1-2 pitch.
And Dan, I know you're as excited, maybe not as excited, but you're pretty excited about Martinez as well.
Very excited about him. 100-mile-an-hour fastball that we hear about. We also hear that he may rank as one of the top breaking balls. This is one of the bright spots for the Cardinals today, and this was Andrew Brown. Everything has gone right for Toronto except on this play. It dropped in between the center fielder and left fielder, and Brown was safe at second, safe and secure. New York life.
Well, that's what we're talking about, oddities. You see oddities in games. These are big leaguers that let a ball drop. It happens.
Big Cardinal fans, Luke, Barrett, Olivia, Avery, all watching and taking in Cardinal baseball today. It says here in my note, Luke and Barrett will play in the big leagues at some point. A nice letter from a Cardinal fan.
Outstanding. I have no doubt.
This note also says, make sure and take your naps. It's part of the process of making it to the big leagues.
You better believe it. And listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents. So that's for Luke and Barrett. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
It's the day that Lance Berkman would like to forget. He's 0 for 3. Made an error. Part of that 4-run 6th inning. Timing seems a little bit off, especially from the right side.
The 2-2 pitch. Berkman off Romero, and he is down. He may be hurt. The throw is offline. A rocket back to Romero, who is slow to get back up.
Boy, you hope he's okay. I mean, what a shame that would be for him to get hurt here in the 9th inning of a game. Trainer out to talk to Romero. He's asking for the ball. He doesn't really want to talk to anybody. He just wants to pitch.
Here's another spot as a manager where you're in a tough situation here where you know Romero's got his juices going. He knows he's 2 outs away from going the distance, complete game shutout. And yet maybe the best thing is that he comes out of the game.
Yeah, that looks like it might have hit him in the top of the foot. That's really what he was pointing to. So hard to see because it was really quick, but he was pointing to the top of his foot. He says he's okay, but that's going to swell up, no doubt. Been hit there before, almost really the kind of the instep almost.
Baseball today presented by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. by Bank of America, where ATM deposits are as easy as an infield fly. No deposit slip, no envelope with Bank of America, member FDIC. And by AT&T. Along with Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. And we are in St. Louis. Berkman will exit. John Jay will come into the ballgame. Berkman with the base hit.
This is the 4th Cardinal hit of the afternoon. Andrew Brown has one of those hits. The double that we saw just moments ago. Fly ball double to left center.
What have you seen, Rick, with Romero? What's made him so good today?
Aggressive in the strike zone. I mean, first pitch strike. Getting ahead of everybody. Then he knows what to do to put you away, too. He doesn't really fool around with guys. Once he kind of gets you on the ropes, he just finishes you off. That's why his pitch count's so low. Here's kind of that 3/4 delivery. Not exactly over the top. Probably adds to his movement some.
Here's a chopper left side. Nice pick out at second. That's a double play. And that is a sweep for Toronto here in St. Louis. Magic number for runs scored, Rick, for Toronto when they face St. Louis. Here in St. Louis, 5 runs.
And unfortunately, no offense from the Cardinals' point of view. They only managed 4 hits, no runs. Our player of the game, our Budweiser player of the game, Ricky Romero, 9 innings, 4 hits, a shutout, only a couple of walks, and he was outstanding in this start this afternoon.
So Ricky Romero goes the distance. 5-0 our final. Post-game show coming up.